All right, so basically I'll go through some of the data in here. The, the main data starts at line number 31. I use some of the rows above this for some calculations that you'll see in a second. It's pretty straightforward. You've got your date. This is the trade input that you put in. Whether it's a stop. This is my manual recording of the entry bar high and low in case it is different than the minute bar for the trade. Anytime you see something in an orange, it's what I manually input, and I've deleted some of the stuff because it won't be interesting to you. But you can use those to do your own calculations or whatever you want to, obviously. You come over a little bit and you'll see you've got all your standard stuff. This is the time the order was placed based upon the input trader previous trading day that I use for the EMA calculations, whether it's long or short, the entry, the stop, the actual time that the entry happened, which may not be the same as the order time. When the trade hit a full stop, regardless of the management strategy, the amount of dollars that were risked. The VBA time is just something I was working on to make sure that I had accurate stuff. Year, month, weekday, the different R values from a dollar perspective. In column 29, you'll often see a value up here. This is the average of the column. So for long short, it's the average of longs versus shorts. Entries, it's the average entry amount, blah, blah, blah. You come over here. You've got the trade pattern. I've alluded to this a little bit on the board the other day, but basically what I do is for each trade I come up with a pattern. If it's a -1, it means that it never got to 1R. It went right to the stop. If it's a 2, it means it got to 2R without ever going back down to 1R. Once it hits 2R, I don't record whether or not it ends up going to a -1 because I figure most all trades finish at 2R. For evaluation purposes, it works pretty good. 1 -1 means it went to 1R and then it went back down to -1R stopped. 0 means that it never went to 1R and it never stopped. 1 means it went to 1R and hung out there, never went back down to 0. Et cetera, et cetera. You can kind of figure that out. But where this can become interesting is you can use these patterns to say, okay, well, show me all the trades that are -1 trades, and is there something interesting with them compared to other things? These are just the different values. So R percent is a trick I used that said, okay, what's the R value versus the stock value? Average volume. ATR in 9 days, the ATR percent in 9 days, what the ATR was at the trade entry, the ATR percent of the trade entry, the R value divided by the ATR minutes to entry from open. So this is how long it took from the time that opened that the trade actually entered. Entry to full stop minutes, so that's the time from the time that you entered the trade to the time that it completely stopped. And then when you come up here, you'll see that there's all these little calculations as well. Again, these are your averages, but then what I do here is I filter out and I say, well, for to all or nothing, what was the median of the trades that resulted in a value of greater than 0 for 2R all or nothing, as opposed to ones that were less than 0 for 2R all or nothing. And sometimes when you go through this, if you see a large discrepancy in here in one of these values, you can say to yourself, well, maybe this is a metric that I can use to further decide whether or not I should be taking trades or how I should possibly manage them. Go a little bit further over. This is the highest R after entry, but before the full stop. This is the lowest R after entry before stop. So in some cases, there'll be ones that made it to the end of the day. So this tells you what the low was. Otherwise, it's usually -1. And then all these are the minutes to the different values. So this one took 0 minutes to get to 0.1 R. This one took 7 minutes to get to 0.1 R. This one never made it to 1 hour, 0.1 hour, so there's no value there, and you can see that. So for this one, it got to 0.5 hour, never made it to 0.6 hour, and so you can just use this to see um, how long trades take to get to certain values. This is kind of this is the close end of day R, which can be interesting. If it hit, excuse me, obviously if it hit the stop in advance of end of day, then it's -1. But if it actually got all the way to the end of the day, didn't stop, this will tell you what the end of the day R was. This is kind of similar to what you just saw, except instead it says, okay, well, what was the 2-minute high? What was the 3-minute high? The 4-minute high? What was the value, the highest value that it hit within this amount of time? And then, of course, if it stops out, then you get a blank value. There's some data about whether or not the opening for the trade was inside the previous day, was the entry that you took inside the previous day, the gap percents, where the Q's inside, what was the Q gap, the SPY opening, et cetera, and you can do all kinds of data analysis on this. You have to be a little careful because if you have 3 trades in the same day, then you're going to end up with the Q's opening, so that's why you don't see some of the averaging stuff on these particular ones. You've got your entry bar high. Okay, so now we're looking at how the entry bars and the bars after it reacted. And I have 2 sets of entry bar values. There's the high and the low here, and then there's this high and low. These 2 are taken from the actual minute charts. These are from my manual recording. So sometimes, I'm sorry, these are from the my manual recordings. These are from the charts, and so sometimes a trade, if you take a trade 30 seconds in, it can vary quite a bit from the previous 30 seconds where the high and low was, which is interesting from some of the data perspectives. And then also if you're trying to do things like trailing R or even EMA calculations, sometimes it can matter. So also, if for really whippy stocks, you can get an indication that it stopped when it really didn't, because the stop value happened before the actual entry value. So anyway, that's all those are. And then after that, it's not a problem because I can use the entire bar to figure it out. All the calculations up above. When you see this one, it says management 1, median, average, and there's another column over to the right, which I'll show you, where you can select different managements. And here I can copy ones from far over to the right, and it allows me to compare them next to each other because there's so many of them. It was really difficult to compare them. So these are just duplicates of the other managements, but it gives me a little area I can work in. And then I also use this area, this management one, for the averaging, and then for some of the pivot tables I just go ahead and grab them from here, and that allows me to check out different management options. Above this are these values, which have nothing to do with the values below. This is the highest R for all the trades that are displayed. Now in your case they're all hard coded, but normally this is it just depends upon whatever selection you happen to have at the time. So your best R for the trades that I recorded for this year would have been to wait until the 1539 closed, and you would have got 44 R on these trades. The expectancy is always the same as the highest R, and then the Sharpe and the batting average is whatever the best batting average and Sharpe is for the particular trades. And I think that's about it. Then come over here. There's the different values. There's bar by bar. There's closing values. There's trailing values. The custom trade managements, which allow me to do a little bit more flexibility. With the, if it gets up to this level, then go ahead and change the stop to this, etc. I can do that and run them that way. So for example, this one is 2-hour target set at 1 hour, move stop to 0R, set original stop to 0.5 R. I mean, just whatever I want to do, I can go ahead and put in here, and then I rerun all the numbers. You've got your EMAs. You've got the different all or nothing values. The color coding here is conditional formatting, so green obviously is better. The lighter the color, the less of the R for whichever one it is you're looking at. Um, I think that's about it. Oh, 84% rule. I sent you a different video on this before, so you know how the 84% rule thing works. I didn't rerun your trades for the 84% rule, but this tells you which ones would have re-entried, um, and the highest R after re-entry before the stop, and the lowest R. Uh, and then this section, which you can't use, allows me, again, another flexibility to add different managements together, and then it comes up with different strategies based on those. But that's a very dynamic thing that you can't use because it's all hard coded. And then finally, this is input for stopping at different R's. It gets me what time they are and what the value was, and that's input for this chart over here. So that's about it. I'm going to keep it short because otherwise I won't be able to load up to YouTube. Let me know if you have any questions.